Alright folks, time for me to lose subscribers. Apparently, I have a very unpopular opinion. As I mentioned earlier in this week, as you have all heard, Trump and 18 other people have been charged under RICO in the state of Georgia for denying the 2020 election. And some of the acts, as I went over, include mere tweets. And so there are a lot of people who are being charged alongside Trump, and the prosecutor has made it clear that she intends to try all of them, at once. They're not going to be separate trials. It's going to have one big trial for all of them, and they're all going to go away for a very long time. And so you would think, well, gee, Trump and all these folks, they should band together. They need to, coordinate a defense. Since they're being tried as a group, they need to defend themselves as a group in order to maximize their chances at success, even though with a 75% Biden voting jury, their chances are slim to none at being acquitted. Well, apparently that is not the popular position within Trump world, because one of the 19 people charged is a woman by the name of Jenna Ellis, who was one of Trump's lawyers during the 2020 election contests, which, as we know, went nowhere and were incompetent. They were bungled. There were very legitimate grounds in which to challenge the 2020 election, and sadly, the Trump folks, as I chronicled at the time, if you can go back on this channel, most of those videos, I believe, are all still up. Or not all of them, but most of them, I think, made it past the YouTube censorship. And it was not handled well. So I'm not a defender of Trump's attorneys. I'm not a defender of Jenna Ellis, Rudy Giuliani, or any of the other folks who failed in correcting the errors of the 2020 election and were incapable of exposing the truth. But that does not mean that I think that any of them should go to prison for the crime of representing Donald Trump. But Trump world, which I define broadly as Trump and his supporters, his public supporters, and just the general Twitter zeitgeist of Trump supporters, which I would hope is not representative of the majority, but I have yet to find a Trump supporter who disagrees with this idea. And that idea is that Jenna Ellis, out of all these people, everyone deserves to get off. This is a political persecution. It's terrible. None of these people should ever go to prison or be tried. This is a sham trial, except for in the case of Jenna Ellis. She deserves to be prosecuted, and she should go to prison. Now, you might find that strange. Why Jenna Ellis, who was one of Trump's lawyers, why should she go to prison? Do Trump supporters think that there actually was a conspiracy to overthrow the U.S. government and that Jenna Ellis is actually guilty of that? No, that's not it at all. Trump and his supporters think that Jenna Ellis should go to prison for this crime because she made the mistake of, I think, endorsing Ron DeSantis. I don't know if she officially endorsed, but I cannot disagree more strongly. I mean, this shouldn't have to be said. If this is I shouldn't say this, because then I would be no different. But the emotional side of me wants to say, if this is the attitude of Trump and his supporters, and by that I mean, the other people, the other 18 people or 17 people, then they deserve to go to prison too. If they think, well, no, she didn't endorse me for 2024, so therefore I think she should go to prison. I'm not going to help her, and in fact, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure she can't raise money for her own defense. Despite that being a tactical error, which I'll get to in a minute, an error which could cost Trump the rest of his life, which, make no mistake, as I keep saying, they're going after the death sentence for Trump. Locking him in prison at this age, pretty much any term, is going to be a death sentence. He will die in prison. So he is fighting for his life. He is in the fight of his life. And he cannot afford to be being petty like this. But anyway, even if he could, it is obviously beyond immoral to condemn a woman to prison, to say that she should go to prison because she supports your opponent in an election. Every response I have seen to Jenna Ellis and other people, who are, I guess, the few people who are friendly to her, saying, hey, let's try and raise some money for her defense, it's just, they get ratioed by Trump supporters saying, haha, maybe she should have thought about, her defense before she endorsed DeSantis or DeSantis or whatever they want to call him. If she really cared about her defense, maybe she should have backed Trump. She shouldn't have abandoned Trump. And all I see are all the pro-Trump influencers, the Loomers of the world, who, for some reason, Laura Loomer, one of the, worst grifters on the planet, is now one of the most prominent Trump supporters. I don't know how that happened, but it's like the quality of Trump talent keeps getting worse. Well, I shouldn't say that. Things were pretty bad in his first administration. I mean, he had friggin' Reince Priebus as his chief of staff. I don't know. Loomer's bad. I don't know if I could say she's Reince Priebus bad. But anyway, she's not the fringe. She's not the outlier. This is the mainstream opinion. Jenna Ellis, go to hell, literally. You should be locked in a gulag. That's where DeSantis voters belong. And it's like, I can't imagine anything more insignificant than the quote-unquote endorsement of your ex-lawyer. I mean, since when do lawyers endorsing presidential candidates mean anything? Unless it's like a lawyer who happens to be really famous. Alan Dershowitz endorses people because people have heard of him. He's a famous lawyer. But no, I don't think there's anybody who is sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for the Jenna Ellis presidential endorsement of 2024. If people have heard of Jenna Ellis at all, they know, hey, that's that lady who was Trump's lawyer in 2020. And so this is beyond stupid. It's just straight up evil. I have no problem calling people evil. I said what Linus did earlier this week was evil. I think that what the deep state is doing to Trump and his supporters is evil. But that would include, of course, Jenna Ellis. There is no difference between what is being done to Rudy Giuliani, a former Trump lawyer, and what is being done to Jenna Ellis, a former Trump lawyer. There's no difference between what's being done to Trump, Rudy, Jenna, and the January 6ers. Yet we haven't seen, as I've chronicled, although not as much as a lot of other people. I don't talk about January 6th nearly as much as the people who really are honed in on that issue, like Julie Kelly. She's the one who does all the reporting on that, and then everyone else who talks about January 6th basically reads what Julie Kelly writes and talks about it some. But Trump has not helped any of those people. Hasn't done it. Hasn't cared. Hasn't talked much about them. Talked about himself, and what's happening to him is important. But it's like, welcome to the club. Hey, Mac, what are you in for? But let's put that aside. Let's just say, okay, I don't care that Trump and most of his supporters apparently are vindictive and are perfectly happy with evil acts befalling people who they have personal grudges against. Let's just say you're okay with that. And you just think, okay, purely pragmatically, I want to make sure that Trump gets into the presidency. That's what I care about, because that's what directly affects me. If Jenna Ellis gets scapegoated and she ends up in prison, that doesn't, okay, sure, maybe that's bad for her and her children and her husband. I assume she has a family. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't affect my life directly. What would affect me much more is if Trump gets in prison, because then Joe Biden becomes president again, and that would be bad for me. That's a perfectly reasonable stance. Okay? I'm not going to call you heartless because you put yourself and your family and your well-being, above some random lawyer. And frankly, I wouldn't even say that that's what you're doing if you don't care about this situation with her and you say, I don't care that Trump wants to, wants her to get life in prison. Because really the two things are not mutually exclusive. You can just say it's irrelevant to me. Because there are tragedies and injustices all across this planet, and nobody has the time to care about each and every one of them. We all have outrage bandwidth. But even if that applies to you, it is a dumb move tactically for Trump to alienate this woman who is already on the fringe of his movement, and by which I mean outside of his movement now. She's been completely excommunicated and has, I guess, excommunicated herself by endorsing his opponent. The way that they like to try these RICO cases is they charge a bunch of people, and they scare everyone into ratting on each other. And so if you're Trump, you want to make sure nobody rats. You want to make sure everyone is on your side and that everyone keeps their story straight. As I said, was it yesterday? You don't want a Sammy the Bull on your hands. Well, guess what? The woman who already has left your movement and is no longer, an open supporter of yours, that's the person you need to worry about the most. That's the person you need to butter up and make sure that she absolutely does not flip, because she's the most likely to. She has the least reason to try and protect you. And so, I think if I were the Georgia prosecutor, Jenna Ellis would be the first person I'd want to talk to. I'd walk her in and I'd say, hey, you've probably got young kids. You've got a nice husband. You've probably got a pretty comfortable life. And you can keep all that if you just testify and read this script for me. Read these words that say, Trump, told me to hack the 2020 election. Read this script that says Trump was taking orders from Putin and that I was just a pawn in all this, and we will give you immunity. You can go home. You can live out, the rest of your life happily. You can raise your kids, or you can spend the next 20 to 30 years in a supermax. That's the choice they're going to give her. And so do you think that'll be a very difficult choice for Jenna Ellis to make? I think it would be, it might not even be a difficult choice to make if she loved Mr. Trump and if she was completely in his good graces. Because you know what? At the end of the day, you probably choose your own family over the orange man. But if he hates her, if he wants to see her burn, and so does everyone else, all those other people, she is probably going to gleefully burn the rest of them and save herself, because she knows that they have already stated they wish they could do the same to her. And so this, as far as I see right now, this is Trump's biggest weakness. This is his biggest threat. There's no person on this planet right now who poses a greater threat to the Trump presidency than Jenna Ellis. And I don't say that as a way of trying to put down Jenna Ellis or say that she's a bad person. I'm saying that she's a threat to him because all the incentives line up. She has no incentive to try and help Trump, to try to protect him, to try and go, link arms with them, because she's already been told, we will not link arms with you. We will not help you raise money. We will not let you raise money. We will condemn anyone who tries to raise money for you. You will have no defense. You're going to be walking in there representing yourself pro se. And even if you're a lawyer, that's a dumb idea. You shouldn't do that. You need the best lawyer possible in this kind of a case. And that's if you can find one who's willing to represent you, which any smart lawyer would not, because they've seen if you represent someone like this, you'll end up like Jenna Ellis. You're going to be the next one who's being prosecuted under RICO. You're going to lose your bar license. That is the fate of someone who represents someone in one of these trials, who represents a dissident in the modern day. These people are not entitled to a defense. That is the status quo right now. And so it's not a difficult decision. If I'm Jenna Ellis, I'm going to walk in there and say, what do I need to tell? Well, let me just tell you whatever you want to hear. I will say it. Just feed me my lines through an earpiece, and I will sing like a bird. And I bet you they will have her perjure herself. They'll have her just get up there on the stand and say things that aren't even true. They'll tell her what they want to hear on the stand, because the truth wouldn't be good enough. Obviously, the truth would not be incriminating, because there's no crimes here. There are no crimes. The crimes are, hey, Trump tweeted, you should watch One American News Network. So, anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.